Join me as we unlock the stories of the past, turning the pages of history to discover the vibrant lives, struggles, and triumphs that have shaped our world. Tonight, we step into Pompeii, a city frozen in time beneath a thick blanket of volcanic ash, an eerie snapshot of everyday life sealed forever by the sudden fury of Mount Vesuvius. Imagine yourself walking down the sunlit streets, the worn cobblestones cold beneath your feet, the warm scent of freshly baked bread wafting from a bakery, the distant chatter of merchants calling out their wares and children darting through narrow alleys. It's a place alive with motion, smells, and sounds, but with one fatal flaw: a ticking clock buried deep beneath the earth. Before you get too comfortable wandering this ancient city, here's a brutal truth: you probably won't survive the suddenness of Vesuvius's wrath. The eruption that destroyed Pompeii was one of the most catastrophic in history, a swift and violent act of nature that turned a bustling city into a ghostly relic almost overnight. So, before you settle in for this story, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And don't forget to post your location and local time. It's always a quiet thrill to know where you're joining me from. Wherever you are, I hope tonight brings you rest, comfort, and maybe a curious dream or two. Pompeii, once a thriving Roman city, was situated along the Bay of Naples, just south of modern-day Italy's bustling urban centers. In the 1st century AD, it was a cosmopolitan hub, home to wealthy aristocrats flaunting marble villas, merchants bustling in busy marketplaces, artisans crafting goods, and farmers bringing in fresh produce from the surrounding countryside. The city's economy thrived on trade agriculture and tourism, attracting visitors drawn to its warm Mediterranean climate and vibrant culture. What makes Pompeii truly remarkable is how the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD preserved the city's life in astonishing detail. Unlike many ancient cities that vanished beneath the centuries, Pompeii's fate was unique. When the volcano erupted, it released a lethal cloud of superheated ash and gas, burying the city under meters of volcanic debris. This sudden burial essentially paused time, capturing homes, streets, artifacts, and tragically people in their last moments. Picture a baker, frozen mid-need, a child clutching a doll, a dog crouched by its owner's side, all preserved in the hardened ash like eerie statues. This chilling snapshot allows us to peer directly into Roman life as it existed 2 millennia ago. You can almost smell the fish sauce simmering on a cook's stove, or hear the murmur of conversations echoing through frescoed villas. The city became a time capsule, offering historians, archaeologists, and curious wanderers a rare glimpse into the past. But how exactly did this tragedy unfold? Was Pompeii doomed from the moment Vesuvius stirred, or were there signs the citizens missed? Historians still argue whether the people fully understood the danger they faced. The days leading up to the eruption were marked by unsettling tremors, earthquakes that shook the region. Some locals fled, abandoning homes and belongings, while others clung to hope, or simply didn't grasp the scale of the threat. It's a tragic mix of human frailty and natural disaster. Walking through Pompeii today, you're struck by the city's complex urban planning. The streets are laid out in a grid with paved roads and stepping stones designed to help pedestrians cross without getting their feet wet. The city boasted aqueducts, bringing in fresh water, public baths that served as social centers, marketplaces, bustling with activity, and a theater that entertained the masses. There were fast food stalls known as thermopolia, where the working class grabbed quick meals, and grand villas adorned with exquisite mosaics and frescoes that told stories of gods and heroes. Among the ruins, graffiti covers walls rude, poetic, political, revealing that humor and social commentary haven't changed much in 2,000 years. Some scribbles are surprisingly modern in tone, suggesting the residents of Pompeii were just as complex and colorful as we are today. One particularly fascinating aspect is how Pompeii's disaster has been interpreted over time. Early explorers in the 18th century viewed the site as a curiosity, but as excavation techniques improved, it became clear that Pompeii was more than just ruins. It was a profound record of Roman civilization, frozen in an instant of time. The human casts made by pouring plaster into the voids left by decomposed bodies in the ash capture final expressions: fear, desperation, or calm acceptance. Some victims were found clutching children or possessions, adding an emotional weight to the archaeological findings. These poignant images continue to captivate and haunt us, bridging the millennia with silent stories of tragedy and loss. Interestingly, historians debate how much Pompeii's residents knew about the volcano. Some evidence points to previous eruptions and local myths, warning of the mountain's dangers, while other records suggest the city prospered without much fear of natural disaster. Was the eruption a sudden act of vengeance by the gods, or a natural catastrophe that humans simply couldn't anticipate? Scholars still debate. Adding a quirky note to the tale, some Pompeii residents apparently kept exotic pets, including monkeys and snakes, which were also caught in the disaster. The remains of these animals give us insight into the city's social fabric, showing that Pompeii was not just a Roman city, but a cosmopolitan melting pot with diverse influences. Another strange detail: archaeologists found evidence that some people may have attempted to protect themselves with crocodile dung as sunscreen. While this sounds bizarre to us, it illustrates the range of customs and remedies used in everyday life, and reminds us that people have always been inventive, if sometimes misguided. And if you think ancient Pompeians lived simple lives, think again. Their plumbing and sewer systems were remarkably advanced, and some homes even had heated floors using early Hipparcos technology. This mix of sophistication and simplicity, luxury and ordinary hustle, paints a vivid picture of a society balancing progress with tradition. As we begin this journey into Pompeii's buried world, keep in mind the fragile line between life and catastrophe. The city's sudden destruction preserved its stories, but also froze the pain of those who lived through the eruption. Tonight, as you drift into sleep, let these stories seep gently into your mind, not as terrifying nightmares, but as whispers from the past, inviting you to reflect on time, change, and resilience. And with that, let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step further into Pompeii's story, wandering among the people who called this city home. It wasn't just a place of stone and ash, it was a vibrant community of diverse characters, each with their own stories, struggles, and secrets. The streets buzzed with activity, filled with patricians flaunting their wealth, artisans crafting goods, merchants shouting deals, and slaves quietly toiling in the background. You'll meet them all, from the grand villa owner to the street vendor selling fresh figs, and maybe even a mischievous child darting between crowded market stalls. Pompeii's population was a mix of native Italians, freedmen slaves, and immigrants from across the Roman Empire. This diversity made the city a cultural mosaic with influences from Greece, North Africa, and beyond. Some residents were born into privilege, their names carved on stone monuments and their wealth displayed in frescoed walls. Others lived on the edge, day laborers scraping by with little more than a roof and a handful of coins. Did you know that some Pompeians kept exotic pets? Archaeologists have found remains of monkeys, parrots, and snakes, hinting at a fascination with the unusual and a desire to showcase status through rare animals. It's easy to picture a noblewoman walking her pet monkey through the forum, while street kids chased after stray dogs. Historians still argue about the exact makeup of Pompeii's population. Was the majority of the city made up of slaves, or were freedmen the former slaves who had earned their freedom the dominant underclass? This question shapes how we understand daily life and social mobility in Pompeii. Freedmen often ran businesses or owned property, blurring the lines between slave and free society. The economic roles of these groups varied widely. Slaves handled many domestic duties from cooking and cleaning to crafting and construction. Some were highly skilled artisans trusted to run workshops or manage complex tasks. Freedmen, meanwhile, sometimes thrived as entrepreneurs owning bakeries, taverns, or even small farms. It's a reminder that ancient social structures were complex and not always rigid. Religion also played a role in social identity. Many households had small shrines to their gods and ancestors where daily offerings ensured divine favor. The mix of deities worshipped from Jupiter and Venus to local spirits and mystery cults reflected the city's multicultural makeup. Some residents followed traditional Roman gods while others embraced Eastern or Greek deities, showing Pompeii's openness to different beliefs. One quirky tidbit: some Pompeians wore amulets made from crocodile teeth, supposedly to ward off evil spirits. Whether effective or just fashionable, these charms reveal the blend of superstition and style common in everyday life. Despite its ancient setting, Pompeii was not immune to the small-scale dramas and gossip that fill modern towns. Court records revealed disputes over property lawsuits between neighbors and even accusations of cheating at gladiator games. A local bakery owner might clash with a rival over dough quality, while political factions competed fiercely in the town council. Imagine the political tensions simmering beneath the city's festive atmosphere. Interestingly, some residents had occupations that might surprise you. One freedman ran a brothel, while another was a full-time actor performing in the city's theater. Trades ranged from shoemakers and metalworkers to seamstresses and fishmongers. The variety of jobs paints a lively picture of urban life full of hustle and creativity. You might wonder about the education of Pompeii's children. Wealthier families hired tutors to teach literature, rhetoric, and philosophy, often Greek in origin. Meanwhile, working-class children learned trades from their parents or attended informal schools. Literacy rates varied, but graffiti scattered across walls suggests many people, not just the elite, could write, even if it was just scribbles or insults. In this city, life was a dance of class culture and daily survival. Yet beneath the surface, historians still debate how stable Pompeii's society truly was. Some argue that tensions between classes foreshadowed unrest, while others see a community that largely coexisted peacefully. As you continue walking these ancient streets, remember the people, their hopes, fears, and everyday moments that vanished beneath volcanic ash. Their stories are the heartbeat of Pompeii waiting to be heard. The streets of Pompeii welcome you now with their organized chaos and urban maze that feels oddly familiar yet distinctly ancient. You might expect a city of that era to be haphazardly thrown together, but Pompeii boasts surprisingly advanced urban planning. Its grid-like layout of paved roads, sidewalks, and stepping stones, designed for pedestrian crossing, gives you a clear sense that someone somewhere cared about order and flow, even if it sometimes caused traffic jams. You find yourself wondering about those narrow streets. Some are so tight that two carts passing each other had to slow down or risk collision. Horses occasionally got stuck, making the rush hour in Pompeii a bit of a mess, if you can call it that. Imagine the ancient equivalent of a honking traffic jam: chariots squealing brakes, merchants shouting, dogs barking, and a cacophony of city life filling the air. Historians still debate whether the traffic problems were common or just isolated incidents. Some scholars suggest that the narrow streets were a defensive feature, making it harder for invaders to storm the city, while others think it was simply a matter of space constraints in a growing urban center. Whatever the reason, the streets show a city balancing practical needs with local quirks. Beyond roads, Pompeii was equipped with fountains and public water basins to provide residents with fresh water. The city's aqueduct system channeled water into baths, fountains, and private homes. You can almost hear the soothing splash of water from public fountains, the gathering spots where gossip spread as quickly as the water flowed. Speaking of baths, they weren't just about hygiene, more on that later, but the city also had street lamps and a sewer system surprisingly advanced for its time. You might imagine a stinky, muddy street, but Pompeii's main roads were paved with stone slabs, featuring gutters to drain rainwater. This infrastructure reduced flooding and kept the city functioning through wet seasons. One curious detail, you might spot stepping stones set across the roads. These allowed pedestrians to cross streets without getting their feet wet or dirty from sewage runoff, a design detail that combines convenience with, well, a certain grossness. After all, ancient cities were not known for their cleanliness. You might chuckle to learn that despite their urban sophistication, some Romans didn't share our standards for personal space or traffic etiquette. Evidence shows people often dumped household waste right onto the streets, and horses left their calling cards wherever they pleased. It's like a citywide you step in it game. Pompeii also hosted a surprising number of fast food stalls or thermopolia. These small shops served ready-to-eat meals, usually simple dishes like bread, cheese, wine, or stews. For many residents, especially those without kitchens at home, these stalls were essential daily stops. Think of Pompeii as having its own ancient street food culture, complete with noisy vendors and hungry customers. Interestingly, some thermopolia had counters with embedded holes for large storage jars, showing a clever design that minimized spills and maximized efficiency. It's a far cry from our modern food trucks, but serves a similar social purpose: quick, affordable meals for busy city dwellers. Yet not everything was so utilitarian. The city's urban design also allowed for vibrant social spaces, markets buzzing with activity, a grand amphitheater hosting gladiatorial games, and a theater where plays entertained the populace. These venues fostered community and cultural identity, reminding us that even ancient Romans craved connection and diversion. A quirky little urban mystery lies in some of the city's alleys, where archaeologists have found narrowed chambers with unclear functions. Were these storage rooms secret meeting spots, or perhaps something more scandalous? Historians continue to debate their purpose, illustrating that Pompeii still holds secrets beneath its dusty surface. In all, Pompeii's urban fabric blends the practical, the social, and the peculiar, reflecting a city that was alive and evolving just like modern towns. It's a reminder that urban life, with all its frustrations and charms, transcends time. As you wander its streets, you might pause to imagine yourself jostled by a crowd of toga-clad citizens, the smell of roasting meat mingling with fresh bread, the clatter of wheels on stone, and the distant music of a lyre. Pompeii's streets were stages for countless dramas, everyday and extraordinary. So next time you complain about traffic, remember Pompeii 2,000 years ago. They had their own congestion problems, and likely a few too many carts blocking the way. You settle into the rhythms of Pompeii's daily life, a sensory tapestry, woven from tastes, smells, and habits, both familiar and strange. Breakfast here isn't your usual cup of coffee and toast, but a ritual centered on olives, bread, and a pungent fish sauce called garum that drips from nearly every dish. Imagine biting into crusty bread, dipped into this fermented delight, and acquired taste, to say the least, perhaps best left to the ancient palate. Food was central not just for sustenance, but as a social glue. Families gathered around wooden tables, reclining on cushions in the Roman fashion, where lying down while eating wasn't a lazy choice but a sign of status. Picture a wealthy homeowner lounging in their atrium, savoring oysters imported from distant seas, while servants bustle about. It's both decadent and oddly relaxing if you can ignore the crumbs falling into your lap. Some Pompeii homes featured mysterious underground food storage pits, their exact purpose still debated by historians. Were they simple cellars, primitive refrigerators, or even secret caches for illicit goods? The lack of clear records means scholars continue to puzzle over these enigmatic spaces. You might imagine them as ancient equivalents of your fridge, only without electricity or temperature control. Fast food was big in Pompeii. Those thermopolia we met earlier served as neighborhood hubs, selling quick meals for those without kitchens or time to cook. The menu ranged from bread and cheese to stews and wine, all prepared and ready to go. Archaeologists found carbonized remnants of meals, including beans, lentils, and exotic spices, hinting at a culinary variety that surprises us even today. Dining etiquette was a spectacle in itself. The upper class often held lavish dinner parties or convivium where entertainment, poetry, and sometimes political gossip flowed as freely as the wine. Guests reclined on couches served by slaves, their conversations weaving between light banter and weighty matters. Oddly, some meals reportedly included exotic dishes like flamingo tongues or dormice, fattened in special jars, recipes that make modern foodies either curious or horrified. You might be amused to learn that some Pompeians used croc dung sunscreen. Yes, crocodile dung. Whether it actually protected skin or just smelled bad enough to ward off insects remains a mystery, but it's a testament to the strange remedies people try when the sun's relentless. Speaking of strange, Pompeians had a habit of indulging in bizarre beauty rituals. Hair dye made from leeches' face masks with lead-based powders and perfumed oils scented with ingredients like ambergris. Think of it as the ancient world's luxury cologne. Not all were safe. Some cosmetic products likely caused more harm than good. Historians still argue over the extent to which these habits were widespread. Were these oddities limited to the elite, or did common folk dabble in them too? Evidence suggests a mix, revealing a society that prized appearance and social standing, but also embraced practical and sometimes eccentric approaches. Mealtime in Pompeii was a sensory adventure. The smell of roasting meats mingled with fresh herbs like rosemary and thyme. Wine was diluted with water and sometimes flavored with honey or spices. The sharp tang of olives and salty fish sauce contrasted with sweet fruits like figs and pomegranates. It's a world both strange and oddly inviting. Beyond food, daily life involved rituals and routines that anchored the city's pulse. Street vendors called out their wares, fresh bread, salted fish, or even live poultry, while children played games like knucklebones, the ancient version of jacks. Public fountains bubbled and laundry fluttered from balconies. Curiously, some homes had what looked like toilet rooms, with stone seats and drainage showing an early grasp of sanitation, even if not quite up to modern standards. The presence of these facilities hints at an awareness of hygiene, albeit primitive by today's measure. As you walk through Pompeii's kitchens and dining rooms, it's clear that food was more than fuel. It was community status and sometimes even superstition. Meals punctuated the day, bringing people together in a world that for all its age echoes our own human desires and quirks. So next time you reach for a sandwich or scroll through food delivery apps, remember, Pompeii's ancient tables full of flavor, ritual, and the occasional crocodile dung sunscreen. Life was messy, surprising, and delicious in equal measure. Pompeii's walls have plenty to say, sometimes louder than the voices of its people ever could. Step closer and you'll find a vibrant gallery of frescoes, mosaics, and graffiti, each offering a window into the city's soul. The art here isn't just decoration, it's storytelling, gossip, politics, and humor all rolled into one colorful package. The frescoes that adorn villa walls are masterpieces of color and narrative. Gods and goddesses come alive in vivid scenes. Myths unfold with dramatic flair, and nature's beauty is captured in delicate floral motifs. Imagine walking through a grand home sunlight, filtering through the atrium, illuminating scenes of Venus, the goddess of love, or Dionysus, the god of wine and revelry. These artworks reveal not just religious devotion, but the homeowner's taste wealth and social ambitions. But it's the graffiti that really brings the city's personalities to life. Walls throughout Pompeii are plastered with scribbles from love notes and political endorsements to bawdy jokes and insults that would make a modern teenager blush. One popular theme, election campaigns residents urge neighbors to vote for candidates, sometimes with subtle threats or witty slogans. Some graffiti even sounds surprisingly modern. You might find a scathing comment about a local rival, a declaration of love, or a boast about one's sexual conquests. It's like ancient Twitter minus the character limit and with a lot more Latin. Historians debate just how public these messages were meant to be. Were they shared openly or hidden in alleyways for select eyes? And did the authors expect their words to be taken seriously? Or was it all part of a playful social game? This ambiguity adds a tantalizing mystery to Pompeii's walls. One particularly cheeky example reads like an ancient pickup line: Marcus loves Julia, but Julia prefers the baker. It's a little reminder that human relationships, with all their drama and humor, haven't changed much in 2 millennia. Mosaics, too, play a starring role in Pompeii's visual culture. Made from tiny colored stones and glass, they decorate floors and walls with intricate patterns, scenes of nature, or geometric designs. These mosaics served both artistic and practical purposes, protecting floors while displaying the owner's status. You might be intrigued to learn that some frescoes depict rather risque scenes, including erotic imagery displayed openly in homes and even public spaces. This openness about sexuality reflects different cultural attitudes compared to modern sensibilities and reminds us that history is full of surprises. Scholars continue to debate the function of these images. Were they purely decorative, meant to convey status and taste, or did they carry deeper religious or protective meanings? Some suggest that erotic art had apotropaic qualities intended to ward off evil spirits. Beyond art, Pompeii's walls speak volumes about its citizens' humor and wit. One wall famously proclaims, "I screwed the barmaid," a blunt statement that makes you smile at the timeless nature of human bravado. The combination of high art and street scribbles paints a picture of a society that embraced both grandeur and everyday life, sacred and profane, public and private. As you move through Pompeii's neighborhoods, let your eyes linger on these colorful voices from the past. They are a mosaic of human experience, love, politics, humor, and art, still shouting across the centuries to anyone willing to listen. Remember that graffiti and frescoes are not just relics, but living echoes of a city's personality, vibrant and complex. And somewhere in the layers of paint and stone, you might just find a story that feels surprisingly close to home. Step into the steamy world of Pompeii's baths, where cleansing the body was only part of the experience. These spaces were social hubs, gyms, and theaters of gossip all rolled into one. The baths weren't mere places to wash off the dust of the day. They were essential for forging connections, conducting business, and even political maneuvering. Think of them as a mix between your local spa, gym, and a cafe with a splash of ancient drama. The layout of a typical bathhouse was carefully designed to guide visitors through a ritual of relaxation. You'd start in the apoditerium, a changing room, where slaves guarded your belongings. Then you'd move through rooms of increasing heat. The tepidarium, a warm room to acclimate your body. The caldarium, a hot steam room. And finally, the frigidarium, a plunge pool for a refreshing chill. The cycle cleansed and invigorated, promoting health and wellness in a way that's familiar even now. But Pompeii's baths were more than just about water and steam. They were places where massages were offered, oils rubbed into muscles, and athletes exercised. Some bathhouses had palestra open-air gyms where visitors practiced wrestling, ball games, and other sports. It was a lively scene full of activity and camaraderie. You might find it odd, but some bathhouses included rooms decorated with strange symbols and images that scholars still puzzle over. Were these signs of secret rituals, protective charms, or just quirky art? Historians debate their meaning, but their presence adds a layer of mystery to what might otherwise seem straightforward. Baths were also places of social equality to some degree. While certain sections were reserved for the elite, people from various social strata mingled, exchanging news and ideas. It's easy to imagine the hum of conversation punctuated by laughter and the occasional splash. Interestingly, evidence suggests some Pompeians used the baths not just for cleanliness, but as a venue for entertainment, including music, poetry readings, and philosophical debates. The air was thick with steam and stories alike. A quirky tidbit: archaeologists have found graffiti inside some bathhouses, including crude drawings and humorous insults like the ancient version of bathroom stall art. One such inscription jokes about a customer's hygiene habits, proving that even in the steamiest places, humor was never far away. The baths also played a role in Pompeii's health practices. The Romans believed hot and cold water therapy balanced the body's humors, and the communal nature of baths helped maintain social bonds. Yet this social closeness might also have facilitated the spread of illnesses, a downside historians often point out. Interestingly, some bathhouses had small shrines dedicated to gods like Apollo or Mercury, indicating a blend of health and spirituality. Bathing was not just a physical ritual, but a sacred one, intertwining wellness with worship. In a world without modern plumbing or medicine, Pompeii's baths were a crucial part of life. They remind us that cleanliness and community have long been intertwined, and that relaxation has always been a priority, even if the methods differ. So, next time you soak in a tub or visit a spa, remember Pompeii's baths, ancient places where steam mingled with stories, and where the simple act of washing became a rich communal experience. Religion in Pompeii wasn't confined to grand temples or solemn ceremonies. It seeped into every corner of daily life, shaping decisions, relationships, and even responses to disaster. You find yourself walking among shrines tucked into homes, statues of gods standing guard in public squares, and amulets worn to ward off the unknown. The city buzzed with spiritual energy as varied as its people. Pompeians worshipped a rich pantheon of gods: Jupiter, king of the gods, Venus, goddess of love, Mercury, god of commerce, and many others. But alongside these familiar Roman deities, local spirits, household gods called Lares and Penates, and imported gods from the east, mingled in complex religious tapestry. The city's cosmopolitan nature meant you could find Greek, Egyptian, and even Phrygian gods alongside traditional Roman ones. Superstition was rife. Charms and talismans protected homes and businesses from evil eyes and bad luck. You might be surprised to learn that some residents carried curse tablets, thin sheets of lead, inscribed with spells calling misfortune upon rivals or enemies. These little objects offer a glimpse into a darker side of Pompeii's spiritual life where jealousy and vengeance took a supernatural turn. Animal sacrifices were common, but some were strange and puzzling to archaeologists. In one case, evidence suggests unusual rituals involving snakes, a symbol both feared and revered. Historians still debate the significance of these ceremonies. Were they meant to appease gods, predict the future, or protect from disaster? The eruption itself was interpreted through religious lenses. Some believed it was punishment from the gods for moral decay or hubris. Others saw omens and signs in the tremors and smoke, but struggled to interpret their meaning. The role of religion in disaster preparedness and response remains a hotly debated topic among scholars. You'll find that religion wasn't just about worship, but a practical tool in everyday life. Priests played roles in public festivals, legal matters, and community decisions. Local cults offered a sense of belonging and identity amid the city's diverse population. A quirky fact: some Pompeians wore phallic amulets called fascina, believed to ward off the evil eye and bring good fortune. These symbols adorned jewelry, household items, and even public spaces, an odd blend of sacred and bawdy that reflects Roman humor and belief. Temples dotted the cityscape, from grand temples dedicated to Jupiter and Apollo to small shrines in the corners of courtyards. Religious festivals punctuated the calendar with processions, sacrifices, and feasts that united citizens in shared celebration. Historians still argue whether Pompeii's religious diversity fostered tolerance or tension. Did different faiths coexist peacefully, or did competition for influence stir conflict? The evidence hints at both cooperation and rivalry, a dynamic as old as religion itself. As you wander these sacred spaces, imagine the prayers whispered, the incense rising, and the faith that buoyed Pompeii's citizens amid uncertainty. Their beliefs offered comfort, explanation, and connection in a world both beautiful and precarious. So as the city stands on the brink of destruction, its people turn to their gods, not just in hope, but in the deep human need to find meaning beyond the visible. Religion in Pompeii was a lifeline, a mystery, and a mirror reflecting the complexities of a society caught between tradition and change. You find yourself drawn into the roar of Pompeii's entertainment scene, where gladiators fought not just for survival, but for fame, fortune, and sometimes fan adoration. The amphitheater, a massive stone arena capable of holding thousands, pulsed with energy as crowds gathered for spectacles of combat and bravery. The gladiators were the rock stars of their day, both admired and pitied their lives, a brutal dance on the edge of death. Pompeii's gladiatorial games were more than mere sport. They were political theater. Local elites sponsored contests to curry favor with the populace, hoping to boost their reputations and influence. The games featured not only sword fights, but also mock naval battles and chariot races. Elaborate productions designed to thrill and distract. Interestingly, some gladiators became celebrities with fan clubs, graffiti praising their skill, and even merchandise like oil lamps bearing their images. One gladiator, known as Spiculus, was rumored to have been favored by Emperor Nero himself. These fighters were a blend of athletes, entertainers, and tragic heroes. Wild animals also played a starring role in Pompeii's arena. Lions, bears, and even exotic creatures like crocodiles were brought in from far-flung provinces, adding a dangerous and thrilling edge to the shows. Transporting and training these beasts was a costly affair, highlighting the game's importance to the city's social fabric. Historians argue whether gladiatorial contests were purely entertainment or tools of political control designed to placate the masses. Some see the games as a way for rulers to demonstrate power and reinforce social hierarchies, while others emphasize the genuine passion and admiration gladiators inspired. Beyond the amphitheater, Pompeii offered other forms of amusement. The city's theaters hosted plays, often comedies or tragedies, that reflected societal themes. Music and dance filled public squares during festivals, while taverns provided spaces for lively socializing and storytelling. You might be surprised to learn that some gladiators were volunteers seeking fame and potential wealth, while others were slaves or prisoners forced into combat. The lines between choice and coercion blurred in this brutal world, adding layers of complexity to their stories. A quirky note: some gladiators used graffiti to advertise their services, essentially ancient endorsements, boasting their fighting skills and training. Imagine a spray painted "Hire me for your next battle" sign, Pompeii's version of marketing in blood and sweat. The games themselves were highly ritualized, with ceremonies invoking gods and formal challenges before the combat began. The crowd's roar could turn to a hush or a frenzy, depending on the fate of the fighters. Thumbs up or down. Actually, historians still debate the exact gestures used to signal mercy or death, another mystery lost in the dust. As you sit in the ancient amphitheater's shadow, feel the electric mix of anticipation and dread that filled the air. The games were a mirror of Pompeii's contradictions: brutal yet beautiful, deadly yet captivating, a place where society's darkest impulses met its deepest desires. So next time you binge watch a sports event or dramatic series, remember Pompeii's gladiators, real people whose stories echo with courage, spectacle, and the eternal human love for a good show. The sky darkens over Pompeii as the hours before disaster unfold, and you find yourself swept into the frantic final moments of a city unaware of its impending doom. Strange phenomena stir the air, animals behave oddly, the ground trembles with increasing frequency, and a thickening cloud begins to curl ominously over Mount Vesuvius. Time seems to slow even as panic quickens. Residents respond in varied ways. Some heed the warnings, gathering their families and fleeing into the surrounding countryside. Others stay clinging to hope or underestimating the danger. Shops hastily shutter their doors. Merchants abandon their stalls, and the usual hum of daily life fades into chaos. Historians still argue how much Pompeii's citizens understood about the volcanic threat. Some evidence points to a lack of knowledge about volcanic eruptions, interpreting the tremors as minor earthquakes rather than precursors to catastrophe. Others suggest that religious omens and portents may have added to the confusion, with some people believing the eruption was divine punishment or an act of the gods. You might imagine a family debating whether to flee, torn between the risks of leaving behind their homes and the unknown dangers outside the city walls. Neighbors shout warnings, but the urgency is lost in the growing cacophony. The eruption's first phase sent a towering plume of ash and pumice skyward, darkening the sun and blanketing the city in thick volcanic debris. Roofs began to collapse under the accumulating weight, forcing people from their homes into the streets, only to find themselves trapped by falling stones and rising ash. Eyewitness accounts from nearby towns describe the terrifying spectacle: a glowing mountain, spewing fire and smoke, the air thick with choking ash, and an eerie silence broken by distant roars and crashes. Some residents tried to protect themselves by covering their faces with cloth, while others sought refuge indoors, hoping the walls would shield them. Tragically, many were overcome by pyroclastic flows, deadly avalanches of superheated gas and ash that swept through the city with devastating speed. Human casts made from the voids left by decomposed bodies capture these final moments: people huddled in doorways, clutching loved ones, or frozen mid-step in desperate flight. The variety of postures tells a story of chaos, fear, and fleeting hope. A particularly eerie detail: some victims were found clutching money or valuables, suggesting attempts to save possessions even in the face of death. Others appear to have reached out in prayer or shielding gestures. Historians debate how much time elapsed between the eruption's onset and the city's burial. Estimates range from several hours to a couple of days, but the rapid burial ensured an almost instantaneous fossilization of the moment. The role of volcanic gases, toxic and invisible, is also debated. Did some residents succumb to fumes before the ash fell? How many tried to escape but were overwhelmed by the heat and suffocation? As you envision these last hours, remember the human dimension amid the geological spectacle, the families torn apart, the courage and terror, the mundane lives interrupted in the blink of an eye. The tragedy of Pompeii is a stark reminder of nature's power and the fragility of civilization. It's a story that reverberates through time, urging us to respect forces beyond our control. Mount Vesuvius, towering over the Bay of Naples, was a sleeping giant with a volatile temperament. Long before its catastrophic eruption in 79 AD, buried Pompeii beneath ash and pumice. Tonight, we journey deep into the science behind that fiery explosion, a natural event both awe-inspiring and terrifying that preserved the city in an eerie snapshot of ancient life, and still captivates volcanologists and historians to this day. The eruption of 79 AD is classified as a Plinian eruption, a term coined after Pliny the Younger, whose detailed letters provide an invaluable eyewitness account. Pliny described a massive column of ash gas and volcanic debris, blasting tens of kilometers into the sky, blotting out the sun, and raining down volcanic material over vast areas. Imagine a plume so immense it darkened the skies for miles, turning day into night. This towering cloud eventually collapsed under its own weight, unleashing deadly pyroclastic flows that surged down the mountain slopes, wiping out everything in their path. These pyroclastic flows, dense, fast-moving avalanches of scorching gas ash and rock fragments, race through Pompeii at speeds estimated up to 450 miles per hour, with temperatures soaring beyond 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Such flows are among nature's most destructive forces, capable of obliterating entire cities in minutes. In Pompeii's case, these flows buried homes, streets, and people, instantly creating a lethal blanket that preserved the city in astonishing detail for centuries. The volcanic ash and pumice that blanketed Pompeii played a dual role: destruction and preservation. As the layers of ash compacted, they hardened into a protective shell, shielding the city's buildings, frescoes, and artifacts from decay. This natural embalming effect is why Pompeii remains one of the world's best preserved ancient cities, providing a time capsule for archaeologists and historians. Yet the eruption's impact wasn't limited to Pompeii. Neighboring cities like Herculaneum were similarly engulfed, albeit buried differently with deeper pyroclastic surges and lava flows, preserving organic materials like wood and food in remarkable condition. These varied burial processes offer complementary insights into Roman life at the time. Modern scientists have studied Vesuvius extensively, yet some aspects remain puzzling. Unusual mineral deposits found in the volcanic layers, such as rare crystals and chemical compounds, hint at complex subterranean geological processes. These findings remind us that, despite advances in volcanology, the inner workings of volcanoes can still surprise us. One enduring question is whether the eruption could have been predicted. Today, volcanologists use sophisticated tools to monitor seismic activity, ground deformation, gas emissions, and temperature changes to forecast eruptions. Ancient Pompeii, of course, had no such technology. However, historical and geological evidence indicates a series of earthquakes shook the region in the months leading up to the eruption. These tremors might have been warning signs, but whether the inhabitants recognized or understood them is still debated. Some scholars argue that residents interpreted the earthquakes through religious or superstitious lenses, seeing them as omens rather than natural hazards. Others suggest that economic and social pressures made evacuation difficult or undesirable even if some recognized the threat. The paradox of Vesuvius lies in its role as both destroyer and creator. The volcano's eruptions deposited mineral-rich ash that fertilized the soil, making the region one of Italy's most productive agricultural zones. This fertility attracted settlers and farmers for centuries, despite the ever-present risk of another eruption. Today, Vesuvius remains one of the world's most dangerous volcanoes, looming over densely populated areas with millions of residents. Continuous monitoring by scientific agencies aims to provide early warnings, yet the threat persists, a stark reminder of nature's power and humanity's vulnerability. The mountain's legacy extends beyond geology and history. It symbolizes the delicate balance between human ambition and the forces of nature. Pompeii's fate illustrates how a thriving civilization can be instantly transformed by an unpredictable event frozen in time for posterity. As you imagine the immense forces unleashed beneath Pompeii, consider the sheer scale of energy required to reshape landscapes and lives in moments. The eruption was both a sudden catastrophe and a geological process shaped over millennia, a dramatic intersection of timescales. Vesuvius's eruption also offers lessons in resilience and preparedness. Modern societies living near volcanoes must balance the benefits of fertile land and economic opportunity against the need for vigilance and emergency planning. In closing, Mount Vesuvius serves as a powerful symbol, a mountain that demands respect, a force of nature capable of both destruction and preservation, and a reminder that beneath the calm surface of our lives, unseen energies can change everything in an instant. So, as you drift toward sleep tonight, imagine the plume of ash rising high into the sky, the roar of the pyroclastic flows, and the stillness that follows, a silence that preserves the echoes of an ancient city forever caught between life and death. As the volcanic ash settled over Pompeii, something extraordinary happened beneath the layers of dust and stone. The bodies of the victims, long since decomposed, left behind voids, empty spaces where flesh once clung to bone. Archaeologists centuries later poured plaster into these cavities, creating haunting casts that capture the final moments of Pompeii's last residents. These human casts freeze time in a way no written record or artifact ever could. You peer at these figures, each telling a silent story of panic, desperation, and sometimes tenderness. One shows a man curled protectively over a child, another, a woman clutching a bundle of possessions. Some appear to be running mouths open in silent screams, while others seem to have accepted their fate, collapsed in sorrow or exhaustion. The detail in these casts is chilling. You can see the folds of clothing, the tension in muscles, even the imprints of fingers clutching tightly at stone or fabric. It's a visceral reminder that these were real people caught mid-action in the most horrific circumstances imaginable. Historians debate the poses and what they signify. Some suggest that certain postures indicate attempts to shield from falling debris or toxic gases. Others think the positions may reflect convulsions or reflexive movements in the face of suffocation and heat. The ambiguity adds a layer of poignancy and mystery. Interestingly, some casts show evidence of jewelry and personal items indicating the victim's social status even in death. A wealthy woman's rings a soldier's belt buckle, a child's bracelet, small details that humanize these frozen figures and hint at lives abruptly ended. The discovery of these casts transformed archaeological practice. Prior to this technique, the knowledge of human suffering during the eruption was limited to skeletal remains and artifacts. The plaster method revealed the emotional and physical reality, providing a new dimension to understanding Pompeii's tragedy. Yet the process is not without controversy. Some question whether the casting method damages fragile remains or how accurately it captures the original form. New technologies like 3D scanning and imaging offer less invasive ways to study these victims, but the plaster casts remain iconic. The casts also raise ethical questions about displaying human remains for public viewing. Is it respectful to exhibit these silent witnesses, or does it risk sensationalizing tragedy museums? And archaeologists grapple with this balance, mindful of honoring the dead while educating the living. Among the casts, some stand out for their unusual postures. One figure, dubbed the Boxer, lies with arms raised as if fighting the very air, an image both powerful and heartbreaking. Others seem to clutch each other, offering a final comfort amid chaos. These frozen moments also reveal the eruption's speed and intensity. People had little time to react, trapped in a deadly embrace of ash and gas. The human casts are a somber testament to nature's merciless force. As you look upon these forms, you feel a quiet connection across millennia, a shared fragility and resilience. Pompeii's human casts remind us that history is not just dates and events, but the lives and deaths of individuals whose stories echo in stone. So as you drift towards sleep, imagine those last moments, the fear, the love, the hope, and the silent endurance preserved forever in plaster. Among the haunting human casts and silent streets of Pompeii, the lives of animals offer another layer to the story, a glimpse into the city's relationships with its creatures and the chaos of the eruption seen through their eyes. Dogs, birds, snakes, and even farm animals lived alongside Pompeii's people, some as beloved pets, others as work companions, and some as wild inhabitants of the surrounding landscape. Archaeologists have uncovered remains of dogs curled protectively by their owners, their loyalty preserved in ash and stone. Imagine a faithful canine companion caught mid-crouch, perhaps sensing danger, yet unwilling to leave its human side. These intimate finds reveal bonds of affection that transcend time, reminding us that Pompeii was not just a human city, but a shared environment. Exotic animals also had their place. Monkeys, snakes, and birds of various kinds lived in Pompeii's homes and gardens, symbols of status or objects of fascination. One villa featured a small cage that may have housed a parrot, its colorful feathers a bright contrast to the muted, ash-covered ruins. Some animals were caught far from their homes in the eruption's chaos. Remains found in unusual locations suggest frantic attempts to escape, or the dislocation caused by the pyroclastic flows and falling debris. Historians debate how animals influenced human evacuation. Did they sense danger early and flee? Were some used as early warning signs? The answers remain elusive, but invite empathy for all lives affected. Stray dogs and wild animals likely roamed the city streets before the disaster, scavenging among the bustling market stalls. The eruption's suddenness meant many were trapped, leaving behind a silent testament to their presence. Curiously, archaeologists found evidence of snakes in religious contexts, possibly kept for ritual purposes or as household guardians. The symbolism of snakes in Pompeii's spiritual life adds complexity to their physical presence. The role of animals in Pompeii's economy was also significant. Livestock such as pigs, sheep, and chickens provided food and materials like wool and leather. Stable remains and animal bones found near city gates reveal the importance of agriculture even within urban limits. One quirky detail: some remains show that certain dogs were groomed and possibly used in entertainment or hunting. Fancy collars and teeth wear patterns suggest diverse roles for these animals, from protectors to companions. The eruption preserved a snapshot of the shared existence pets, wild animals and livestock alike caught in the disaster's grip. Their remains add a poignant dimension to the human tragedy, reminding us that Pompeii was a living ecosystem. As you think about these creatures, some loyal, some exotic, some wild, consider the universal bonds between humans and animals and the vulnerability they shared in the face of nature's fury. So tonight, as you settle in, let the silent presence of Pompeii's animals remind you of the countless lives intertwined in the city's final frozen moment. The story of Pompeii is not just one of grand villas, bustling markets, and volcanic destruction. It is also the story of the countless slaves and freedmen who formed the city's living, breathing backbone. Tonight, we take a deep dive into their world, a complex web of servitude, freedom, ambition, and survival that reveals the city's social fabric in all its messy human complexity. Slavery was a fundamental institution in Pompeii as it was throughout the Roman Empire. Slaves performed a vast array of tasks from the most menial chores to highly skilled professions. In household, slaves cooked, cleaned, tended gardens, and cared for children, often forming the invisible workforce that kept daily life running smoothly. But the role of slaves extended far beyond domestic service. Archaeological evidence shows slaves working in workshops as craftsmen, metalworkers, bakers, and painters. Their labor was indispensable to Pompeii's economy, supplying goods and services that sustained both the local market and exports. Some slaves were educated serving as scribes, accountants, or tutors positions that required literacy and trust. Despite their lowly status, the lives of slaves in Pompeii were far from monolithic. Conditions ranged from harsh and brutal to relatively comfortable, depending largely on the disposition of their masters and their assigned tasks. While some endured grueling labor and strict discipline, others occupied privileged positions within elite households, enjoying better food, clothing, and occasional social interaction. One remarkable aspect of Pompeii's society was the presence of freedmen, former slaves, who had been granted or bought their freedom. Freedmen often navigated a tricky social landscape, caught between their past servitude and the privileges of free citizens. Many freedmen found opportunities as entrepreneurs running shops, taverns, or workshops. Their names frequently appear on graffiti and inscriptions advertising services or expressing opinions, signaling a level of confidence and social participation. Freedmen could amass considerable wealth, sometimes rivaling that of freeborn citizens. Yet they remained legally distinct, often barred from certain political rights and social honors. Their children, however, born free, could rise fully into Roman society, a generational transformation, reflecting social mobility within an otherwise rigid hierarchy. The daily lives of slaves and freedmen were embedded in a system that was both exploitative and at times surprisingly flexible. Some slaves earned or negotiated better conditions through trustworthiness or skill, while others used manumission, the process of gaining freedom, as a goal, saving money, or receiving freedom as a reward. Evidence from Pompeii's graffiti reveals fascinating glimpses into the personalities and aspirations of slaves and freedmen. One inscription boasts, "I am a freedman, and my name is Felix. I have a shop, and I live better than my former master." Such expressions challenge simplistic views of ancient slavery and hint at individual stories of triumph and resilience. In the religious sphere, slaves and freedmen participated actively. Many were members of religious guilds or cults, where they could find a sense of community and shared identity. Some even sponsored statues or temples, signaling their devotion and status within these groups. Religion offered both solace and a means to assert social presence. Slaves also had cultural roles. Some were entertainers, musicians, actors, or gladiators, gaining public recognition, and sometimes celebrity status. Gladiatorial slaves in particular had complex lives. While forced into combat, some became adored figures with fan followings. Their fates straddling life and death highlight the contradictions of Roman society. Historians debate the overall harmony of relationships between slaves, freedmen, and masters in Pompeii. While literary sources often emphasize domination and cruelty, archaeological findings reveal nuances, forms of patronage, familial bonds, and negotiations of power. The lived reality was likely a mixture of oppression and cooperation with room for personal agency within systemic constraints. An intriguing aspect of Pompeii's social structure is the fluidity of status markers. Freedmen adopted Roman naming conventions and public identities, seeking acceptance and recognition. Inscriptions and funerary monuments commissioned by freedmen display pride and aspirations that challenge assumptions about their marginalization. Yet the shadows of servitude lingered. Freedmen faced legal disabilities and societal prejudices persisted. They were often excluded from senatorial or equestrian ranks, and their social integration remained partial. These tensions reflect broader themes of identity, power, and belonging in Roman society. Pompeii's slaves and freedmen were more than footnotes. They were active participants shaping the city's economy, culture, and social life. Their stories, etched in walls, buried in graves, whispered through artifacts, offer a vital counterpoint to the grandeur and tragedy of Pompeii. As you reflect on these lives, imagine the hopes, struggles, and small victories that mark their days. Picture a freedman opening his shop, a slave mastering a craft, a family forging a new identity in the wake of freedom. Their resilience, creativity, and humanity endure beyond the ash and ruin. So tonight, as you close your eyes, carry with you the voices of Pompeii's slaves and freedmen, testaments to endurance and transformation amid the city's vibrant tapestry. We step now into the dazzling world of Pompeii's wealthier residents, whose lavish villas and opulent lifestyles offer a striking contrast to the city's bustling streets and working-class neighborhoods. These grand homes were more than mere dwellings. They were statements of power, taste, and status, adorned with exquisite mosaics, frescoes, and innovative architecture. Pompeii's elite spared no expense in flaunting their wealth. Marble columns rose from atriums, gardens were filled with statues and fountains, and floors gleamed with intricate mosaics depicting mythological scenes or geometric patterns. Some villas featured heated floors powered by the ingenious Hippocos system, a marvel of Roman engineering that circulated warm air beneath the floors. Yet beneath the luxury, some villas held curious secrets. Archaeologists have uncovered hidden rooms and passageways whose purposes remain debated. Were these spaces used for secret meetings, religious rituals, or simply storage? The mystery adds a layer of intrigue to the grandeur. Lavish decorations extended to walls painted with vibrant frescoes, showcasing gods' landscapes or daily scenes reflecting both artistic trends and personal interests. These paintings not only beautified homes, but also broadcasted the owner's education, culture, and connections. Oddly, some villas displayed erotic art, openly a cultural norm that surprises modern sensibilities. These images often symbolized fertility, protection, or prosperity, blending the sacred and the sensual in ways that invite scholarly debate. Historians argue whether such extravagance signaled confidence or hubris. Did the elite sense the city's precariousness, or did they live in blissful ignorance? Some suggest the opulence masked underlying social tensions or economic pressures. The distribution of wealth was stark. While grand villas occupied prime locations with sea views or near city centers, modest homes crowded the periphery. This disparity highlights Pompeii's complex social fabric, where luxury and poverty coexisted side by side. Interestingly, some wealthy residents invested in multiple properties, including rural estates that served as retreats or agricultural centers. These holdings reflect a lifestyle balancing urban sophistication with country leisure. Secret chambers and peculiar decorations sometimes hint at personal eccentricities or unconventional beliefs. One villa featured a room filled with bizarre masks and symbols, puzzling historians about its function. Was it a theater space, a sanctuary, or something else entirely? The lavish lifestyle extended beyond architecture to dining and entertainment. Banquets showcased exotic foods, fine wines, and live performances reinforcing social bonds and hierarchies. As you imagine walking through these palatial homes, consider the lives lived behind their walls. Plans made, alliances forged, and secrets kept. Pompeii's villas stand as monuments to ambition, artistry, and the human desire to leave a lasting mark. So next time you admire a grand estate or a well-decorated home, remember the lavish villas of Pompeii, testaments to beauty and complexity, frozen in time, whispering stories of power, pleasure, and mystery. Beneath Pompeii's sunlit streets and frescoed walls lies a secret world of curses and spells. Messages inscribed on thin sheets of lead or etched into walls revealing a darker side of daily life. Tonight we unravel the mystery of Pompeii's curse tablets, tiny but powerful expressions of human desire for vengeance, love, or justice. Or these curse tablets, known as defictiones, were a common feature in ancient Roman life. Crafted from thin lead sheets, they contained inscriptions calling upon gods or spirits to bring harm or misfortune to rivals, thieves, or unfaithful lovers. Sometimes the curses were explicit, detailing punishments and sealing the fate of the targeted individual through supernatural means. In Pompeii, archaeologists have uncovered dozens of these tablets, often hidden in wells graves or sacred places, suggesting they were carefully placed to maximize their potency. The language used varies from formal appeals to crude insults, painting a vivid picture of personal conflicts and social tensions. One tablet famously curses a thief who stole a slave, demanding that the offender be struck down by divine forces. Another pleads for a lover to return, combining affection and desperation in a single incantation. These artifacts provide rare insight into the private thoughts and fears of Pompeii's inhabitants. Historians debate how seriously such curses were taken. Were they genuine pleas to the gods' psychological comforts or social tools to intimidate? The truth likely lies somewhere in between, reflecting a complex interplay of belief, emotion, and culture. The practice of curse tablets ties into Pompeii's broader religious and superstitious life, where magic and ritual coexisted with traditional worship. The tablets were part of a spectrum of practices aimed at influencing fate and controlling uncertainty. Some curse tablets targeted political rivals or business competitors, hinting at the cutthroat nature of Pompeii's public life. This use of magic as a weapon adds a fascinating dimension to our understanding of ancient society. You might be amused to know that some tablets include sarcastic or humorous elements, suggesting the cursing process was not always solemn. This blend of fear, humor, and human complexity echoes the contradictions of Pompeii itself. As you consider these lead sheets, imagine the hands that wrote them, angry, hopeful, or heartbroken, and the voices whispered into the night. Pompeii's curse tablets are intimate relics of the city's hidden emotions and struggles. So tonight, let these ancient spells remind you that beneath every civilization lies a world of personal dreams, fears, and dark humor, timeless facets of the human experience. Pompeii was a bustling hub of trade and commerce, a city alive with the clatter of goods being bought and sold, contracts being shouted over busy markets, and the constant rhythm of economic life. Tonight, we step into its bustling marketplaces where merchants and artisans exchanged wares ranging from everyday necessities to exotic luxuries. The city's strategic location near the Bay of Naples made it a vital trading post in the Mediterranean, linking it to far-flung regions. Goods like olive oil, wine pottery, and grain flowed through its ports, while imports from Egypt, North Africa, and the East filled shops with spices, textiles, and precious metals. Imagine walking through a market filled with vibrant colors, fragrant herbs, and the cacophony of vendors hawking their goods. Specialized stalls cater to all manner of needs. Some sold cosmetics, perfumes, and oils essential for Roman beauty rituals, while others offered spices and ingredients for exotic recipes. A curious find revealed a shop specializing in poisons, reminding us that even ancient marketplaces had their darker corners. Trade wasn't just about goods but services. Artisans crafted jewelry, leather goods, and metalwork, often advertising their skills through graffiti or shop signs. The competition was fierce, driving innovation and quality in an effort to attract discerning customers. The markets also served as social centers where news, gossip, and politics mingled with commerce. It's easy to picture lively debates over prices, local events, or election campaigns, with merchants doubling as information hubs. Historians debate Pompeii's exact role in Mediterranean trade. Was it primarily a regional market, or did it serve as a significant export center? Evidence points to both, highlighting the city's importance and connectivity. Economic life was shaped by social status. Wealthy patricians invested in commercial ventures or owned workshops, while freedmen and slaves often worked as traders or craftsmen. This blend of actors created a dynamic economic environment. Interestingly, some market stalls specialized in novelty items or curiosities, appealing to tourists and locals alike. Exotic perfumes, imported wines, and colorful dyes were popular among those eager to display status. Despite its vibrancy, Pompeii's economy had vulnerabilities. Reliance on imports made it susceptible to disruptions, and social inequality sometimes bred tensions between classes engaged in commerce. As you wander the market stalls, imagine the aromas of fresh bread, the sparkle of jewelry catching the sun, and the lively bartering that filled the air. The marketplace was the city's beating heart, a place of opportunity and connection. So next time you stroll through a modern market, remember Pompeii's bazaars, a vibrant tapestry of trade culture and human interaction frozen in time beneath volcanic ash. Beneath Pompeii's lively streets lay a sophisticated network of infrastructure that kept the city running smoothly, a feat that might surprise you given its ancient context. Tonight, we explore the city's water supply, sewage systems, and street lighting, revealing a level of engineering that speaks to Roman ingenuity and urban ambition. Water was essential to Pompeii's daily life, and the city's engineers mastered the art of aqueducts and piping. Fresh water flowed from distant sources through aqueducts into public fountains, baths, and private homes. These fountains were more than mere decoration. They provided vital access to clean water, encouraging hygiene and social interaction. Inside, wealthy homes lead, or terracotta pipes channeled water to kitchens, baths, and even ornamental pools. Archaeologists uncovered traces of this plumbing system, showing an early understanding of water distribution. Yet some plumbing components remain mysterious, sparking debate about their exact functions and maintenance. Sewage was managed through a network of stone-lined drains running beneath streets designed to carry wastewater away from homes and public areas. This system helped keep streets relatively clean, an impressive achievement for a city of its size and density. Street gutters and drains directed rainwater, preventing flooding and water damage. You might be amused to learn about the stepping stones set in the streets, spaced perfectly for pedestrians to cross without stepping into sewage. A small but clever urban design solution. These stones also served as informal speed bumps, slowing down carts and horse traffic. Lighting the streets was another challenge Pompeii addressed with oil lamps placed along major roads and public spaces. Though primitive compared to modern standards, this early form of street lighting enhanced safety and extended social life into the evening. Historians debate how well maintained these systems were and who was responsible for their upkeep. City officials, homeowners, or local guilds, evidence suggests a mix of public and private management, highlighting complexities in ancient urban governance. The city's infrastructure also extended underground. Archaeologists uncovered tunnels and cisterns, some serving religious or defensive purposes. The multifunctionality of these structures underscores the layers of Pompeii's urban complexity. Interestingly, despite these advancements, Pompeii struggled with sanitation issues common to ancient cities. Garbage disposal and waste management were ongoing problems, with some residents dumping refuse into streets or communal areas, contributing to health risks. The combination of advanced engineering and everyday challenges paints a realistic picture of Pompeii, a city striving for order amid the messiness of human life. As you imagine walking Pompeii's streets, picture the flowing water, the faint glow of lamps, and the occasional splash of a passing cart crossing a stream of rainwater. These small details reveal a city working hard to balance comfort, cleanliness, and practicality. So tonight, remember, Pompeii's infrastructure not just as stone and pipe, but as the veins and arteries of a living city, a testament to human ingenuity and the pursuit of urban harmony beneath the shadow of Vesuvius. The story of Pompeii did not end with its catastrophic burial beneath volcanic ash. Rather, that tragic event marked the beginning of a long and fascinating journey of rediscovery, interpretation, and myth-making that continues to captivate the world. Tonight we explore how Pompeii went from forgotten ruins, buried under layers of stone, to one of the most remarkable archaeological sites on the planet. A window into ancient life that has profoundly influenced history, art, and culture. For centuries after the eruption in 79 AD, Pompeii lay lost beneath the earth, its story buried along with the people who once walked its streets. Over time, nature reclaimed the land and memories faded into legend. The city's exact location was forgotten, known only through scattered historical references and vague local tales. It wasn't until the early 18th century that Pompeii's secrets began to emerge once more. The rediscovery happened almost by accident. In 1599, a Roman architect named Domenico Fontana came across ruins near Mount Vesuvius, but their significance wasn't immediately recognized. Later, in 1709, more extensive excavations were begun under the Kingdom of Naples, primarily in search of valuable artifacts and treasures rather than scientific knowledge. These early digs were crude by modern standards, focusing on treasure hunting rather than preservation or study. Yet they unveiled astonishing glimpses of an ancient city preserved under volcanic ash. The initial finds sparked widespread fascination and curiosity. To many Europeans, Pompeii became a symbol of lost grandeur, a city suspended in time, untouched by the ravages of history. It inspired artists, writers, and philosophers who saw in its ruins a poignant reminder of human fragility and the transience of civilization. Pompeii's rediscovery coincided with the rise of neoclassicism, a movement that idealized ancient Greece and Rome, fueling an appetite for antiquity. Early explorers imagined Pompeii as a pristine, eternal city, a perfectly preserved snapshot of Roman life. This vision captured the imagination, but it was also a simplification. The actual city was complex, lived in, and far from flawless, a place of vibrant social interaction, contradictions, and imperfections. Yet the romanticized image of Pompeii as a lost paradise endured, influencing literature, art, and popular culture for generations. As archaeological techniques improved through the 18th and 19th centuries, Pompeii became a focal point for systematic excavation. Pioneers like Giuseppe Fiorelli revolutionized the study of the site by introducing methods such as the plaster casting of voids left by decomposed bodies, giving voice to the silent victims of the eruption. These casts provided unprecedented insight into the human tragedy, revealing expressions, postures, and possessions frozen in time. The process of uncovering Pompeii was, however, fraught with challenges. Early excavations were often destructive, with careless digging, damaging fragile frescoes and structures. Conservation was an afterthought, and the sheer volume of finds overwhelmed the nascent archaeological community. Over time, however, attitudes shifted towards preservation, scientific documentation, and respectful study. The public's fascination with Pompeii grew, transforming the site into a major tourist attraction. Visitors from across Europe traveled to see the ruins, walk ancient streets, and marvel at frescoes and mosaics. Pompeii became a cultural phenomenon, a source of inspiration for writers like Goethe and artists who sought to capture its tragic beauty. This popular engagement also brought challenges. The influx of tourists exposed delicate ruins to wear and tear, prompting debates about the balance between accessibility and conservation. Modern preservation efforts have employed advanced technologies such as 3D scanning, laser cleaning, and drone imaging to document and protect the site, yet questions remain about how best to manage Pompeii's future. The mythologizing of Pompeii also led to misconceptions. Some viewed it as a city frozen instantly in time, while others imagined it as a utopia destroyed unjustly. Over time, scholarship has corrected many of these notions, revealing a dynamic, evolving city with social tensions, economic disparities, and everyday struggles. Historians continue to debate the social realities of Pompeii, the nature of its population, the extent of slavery, and the roles of women and freedmen. Each new excavation and discovery adds nuance to our understanding, challenging earlier assumptions and revealing the city as a vibrant community, not just a static relic. The legacy of Pompeii extends beyond archaeology. It has influenced the fields of art history, urban studies, and disaster science. The site provides critical lessons about cultural resilience, urban planning, and human responses to catastrophe. Pompeii's story resonates today as modern cities grapple with natural disasters, climate change, and preservation of heritage. As you imagine the centuries passing, Pompeii buried, forgotten, then slowly revealed, think about how history is not a fixed narrative but a living dialogue between past and present. Pompeii invites us to listen closely to voices long silenced, and to reflect on the enduring human quest to understand our place in time. So tonight, as you drift into rest, let Pompeii's rediscovery remind you of the fragile threads that connect us across millennia. A city lost, found, and forever alive in our shared imagination. In the modern age, Pompeii stands at the intersection of history, technology, and preservation, a delicate balancing act between opening the city's secrets to the world and protecting its fragile remains from further decay. Tonight, we explore how cutting-edge technology helps preserve Pompeii, revealing hidden structures and mysteries while fueling debates about tourism conservation and authenticity. As excavation techniques have evolved, so too have methods for documenting and safeguarding the site. Lasers, drones, and 3D scanning now enable archaeologists to capture Pompeii's architecture and artifacts in unprecedented detail without disturbing delicate structures. These tools create digital maps and models that preserve information for future generations, even if the physical ruins deteriorate. For example, high-resolution 3D scans reveal hidden frescoes beneath layers of grime details, invisible to the naked eye. Laser imaging penetrates obscuring deposits, uncovering faint wall paintings and inscriptions that add new chapters to Pompeii's story. Drones hover above mapping sprawling urban landscapes and revealing building layouts previously obscured by centuries of volcanic material. Thermal imaging technology has detected subterranean chambers and tunnels, offering clues to Pompeii's complex infrastructure. These discoveries challenge earlier assumptions, showing that even after nearly 2,000 years, the city holds secrets waiting to be uncovered. Despite these advances, the site faces severe conservation challenges. Exposure to air and moisture accelerates the decay of organic materials and pigments, while tourism brings wear and tear on fragile surfaces. Balancing public access with preservation requires careful planning and resources. Debates rage among experts about the best strategies. Some advocate for limiting visitor numbers or creating replicas and virtual tours to reduce physical impact. Others emphasize the educational and economic importance of on-site tourism, advocating for enhanced infrastructure and maintenance. Pompeii's preservation is also threatened by natural factors, earthquakes, weathering, and invasive plants damage walls and structures. Ongoing restoration projects use modern materials, but critics worry about compromising the site's authenticity. The city has become a testing ground for heritage management, blending archaeology with science, technology, and policy. International collaborations bring expertise and funding, but also differing priorities, making conservation a complex global endeavor. Technology has also transformed visitor experience. Virtual reality and augmented reality tours allow people worldwide to explore Pompeii's streets, homes, and public spaces without physical presence, broadening access and reducing strain on the site. However, the question remains, how much should we intervene? Some argue that over-restoration risks erasing the marks of time that give Pompeii its character. Others stress urgency in preventing further loss, even if it means modern additions. This tension between preservation and access reflects broader themes in cultural heritage management, how to honor the past while engaging present and future generations. As you imagine these high-tech guardians watching over Pompeii, consider how the marriage of ancient history and modern science creates a dynamic dialogue, a partnership striving to keep the city's stories alive. Pompeii stands as a testament to human creativity, both in its original construction and in ongoing efforts to protect its legacy. The challenges it faces remind us of the responsibilities that come with uncovering history. So tonight, let the image of lasers tracing ancient walls and drones hovering over volcanic ruins symbolize a hope that Pompeii's silent stones will continue to speak, bridging past and future in a timeless embrace. Pompeii's story is not just about a city lost to volcanic fury. It's a timeless lesson, a mirror reflecting human resilience, urban life, and the delicate balance between civilization and nature. Tonight we step back to consider what Pompeii teaches us today, drawing parallels between ancient tragedy and modern challenges, and reflecting on how the past continues to inform our future. At first glance, Pompeii seems like a relic, a snapshot of a world long vanished. But beneath the ash, the city pulses with insights relevant to our times. Its streets, homes, and public spaces reveal the rhythms of urban life, the interplay of social classes, the bustle of trade, the pulse of culture, and the communal need for safety and belonging. These elements are as familiar to us as our own neighborhoods and cities. Pompeii teaches us about resilience, the capacity of societies to flourish in the face of risk. The city's location near a volcano was no accident. The fertile soils offered abundant agriculture, attracting settlers despite the looming threat. This mirrors how modern cities develop in hazard-prone areas, coastlines vulnerable to hurricanes, fault lines riddled with earthquakes, or floodplains subject to rising waters. The eruption's suddenness is a stark reminder of nature's power and unpredictability. Today, advances in science give us tools to monitor and sometimes predict disasters, but uncertainty remains. Pompeii's fate urges humility and preparedness, encouraging societies to invest in resilience planning, emergency response, and sustainable development. The social fabric of Pompeii, diverse, dynamic, yet unequal, offers lessons in urban complexity. Tensions between classes, the roles of slaves and freedmen, and the negotiation of power and identity reflect ongoing human themes. Modern cities wrestle with similar issues: economic disparities, social mobility, and cultural integration. Pompeii also highlights the importance of heritage preservation. The city's ruins are a treasure trove of knowledge, yet they face threats from time tourism and environmental factors. Balancing access with conservation challenges policymakers, archaeologists, and communities worldwide, reminding us that cultural heritage is a shared responsibility. Technological advances from 3D scanning to virtual reality help democratize access to Pompeii's stories, connecting global audiences to the past. This fusion of technology and history exemplifies how innovation can enrich understanding and foster empathy across time and space. Yet Pompeii's story is not just about caution or science. It is also about fascination, curiosity, and the enduring human desire to connect with those who came before. The city's preserved homes, artworks, and artifacts evoke empathy and wonder, bridging the millennia. Reflecting on Pompeii invites us to consider our own vulnerabilities and strengths. It encourages a deeper appreciation of urban life's fragility and the interdependence of society and environment. It challenges us to think about legacy. What will we leave behind, and how will future generations remember us? You might find it comforting or sobering to recognize these parallels, that despite technological leaps and social changes, human experience remains connected through fundamental themes of community, risk, and hope. As you prepare to rest, let Pompeii's lessons seep gently into your thoughts. A city once vibrant and doomed, now a beacon illuminating the path between past and future. So tonight, carry with you the quiet strength of Pompeii's story, a reminder that even in loss there is wisdom, even in silence a voice, and even in endings the seeds of new beginnings. As our journey through Pompeii reaches its gentle conclusion, we slow our steps and soften our voices, allowing the echoes of this ancient city to settle quietly within the folds of your mind. The layers of ash and time have preserved a story both tragic and magnificent, a story that whispers to us across millennia, inviting reflection, calm, and a deep connection to the human experience. Imagine, if you will, the city at dusk. The sun dips low, casting elongated shadows across Pompeii's empty streets. The worn cobblestones, still imprinted with centuries-old footprints, glow warmly in the fading light. The Mediterranean breeze caresses the crumbling walls and shattered frescoes, carrying faint murmurs of laughter, footsteps, and voices long gone. The air is thick with history and memory, a delicate balance of presence and absence that fills the city with a profound stillness. Consider the faces captured in the haunting plaster casts: the mother, clutching her child with desperate tenderness; the man, frozen mid-stride as if caught by surprise; the lovers intertwined in a silent embrace. These figures, once living, breathing souls, are now timeless companions on this journey. Their silent stories reach through the veil of time, revealing universal themes of fear and hope, love and loss, everyday life and sudden catastrophe. They remind us that beneath the veneer of history lie real people with dreams, struggles, and emotions not unlike our own. The quiet ruins of Pompeii invite contemplation of impermanence, the fragile nature of human existence, and the transitory beauty of the cities and civilizations we create. Once a vibrant hub of commerce, culture, and community, Pompeii was transformed overnight into a tomb beneath volcanic ash. Yet through the tireless work of archaeologists and conservators, it rose again not as a living city, but as a monument to resilience, memory, and the enduring power of storytelling. As you settle more deeply into rest, envision the slow passage of time, the gentle decay of painted walls, the creeping embrace of plants reclaiming stone, the sun's steady journey across the sky illuminating forgotten corners. Think of the hands, ancient and modern, that shaped, preserved, and now protect these relics of the past. Their efforts bridge the gulf of centuries, allowing Pompeii's silent stones to speak anew. There is a unique beauty in this delicate dance between destruction and preservation, between silence and remembrance. Pompeii's stillness is not emptiness, but a space filled with echoes, soft whispers of lives once lived, lessons learned, and histories shared. In these quiet moments, as the world slows around you, allow yourself to release the clamor of the day. Let the gentle calm of Pompeii seep into your thoughts, steadying your breath and quieting your mind. Imagine the city's ancient pulse syncing with your own, a timeless rhythm of human experience and natural cycles. Reflect on the fragility and strength of life, the cycles of birth and loss, and the threads that connect past to present. Pompeii teaches us not only about tragedy, but also about continuity, how stories endure, how memories shape identity, and how we are part of an unbroken chain stretching across time. As you drift further into rest, carry with you the soft glow of Pompeii's legacy, a city paused, preserved, and forever alive in the shared consciousness of humanity. Wherever you are, I hope tonight brings you rest, comfort, and maybe a curious dream or two. I'll be here with another story for you tomorrow night.